Welcome to the Parenting Coach Podcast with Crystal. Over 7 years ago, I felt like I was stuck in this cycle of yelling and reactivity in my parenting that I did not want to be in, but I didn't know how to get out of. I knew how I wanted to parent pretty much exactly, and I'd spent hours reading books, but not finding a way to show up how I wanted to. That's when I started to turn inwards. My own inward journey was what my family needed. As I changed, everything around me changed. My kids' meltdowns decreased by 90% or more with no medications or therapy. I stopped yelling, sibling fighting became almost entirely non-existent, and I found that this change flowed into other areas of my life too. My intuition increased. I started to run my life and business in a very different way. If this sounds like something you want to, I can help. Join me each week as I share my journey, including the laughter, fun, hard times, and tears. Tune in for support, guidance, and fun conversations with my favorite experts, and really anything else that interests me too. Episode 2, Growth from Resistance. We don't build muscles without first breaking them down, and in the breaking down, it feels very uncomfortable. This is the same theme in all growth in life. It's uncomfortable to break down. It doesn't feel good to dig inward and notice where our resistance is. But on the other side of resistance is the most magical growth and the most magical life that we could ever imagine. In this episode, we're going to talk about growth and resistance and how they are intrinsically connected, like breaking down our muscles, where we are feeling resistance in our life and what's behind it. Some of the best journal prompts here are going to be for your growth. What's on the other side of resistance, changing my parenting, changing my business and my life. Where is resistance popping up in small ways? And how can I be more radically honest and vulnerable with myself? And we're going to talk about being uncoachable and sticking in our concrete box of resistance, which leads to not growth. Hello, I am excited to talk all about resistance today. I just feel like life is this game or something. And as we go through it, there's just things that pop up, and they're the things that pop up that we need to learn from. And we can either take life as a learning experience, or we can ignore it and avoid it and ignore it and avoid it. And eventually it just bubbles up again, usually louder and bigger in more destructive ways until we listen to it. And resistance has been that way for me. I've just noticed that resistance keeps popping up in different areas of my life, and either push it away and avoid it and just keep resisting it, or I take resistance as a little avenue for growth, as a little warning sign, like, hey, there's something here that you probably want to look at. And sometimes in my life, I'm just like, no, I'm not up for that. Like, my nervous system is just too out of whack, or I don't have time for that, or whatever. But the opportunities that I've taken recently to dig into resistance have really changed things for me. And I'm going to talk about some of the more big times throughout my life that I feel resistance changed things for me in a huge way. But recently I've been noticing it in the smaller, micro level. What resistance am I feeling during the day to do things like to record a podcast, or to post on Instagram, or to have a conversation with one of my kids, or to get something specific done on my to-do list that I'm avoiding? What is that resistance all about? And I have been using resistance almost as that warning sign of when resistance pops up, let's dig in. Instead of let's avoid, let's resist, let's push away more, I am digging into what is there. What's behind that? What is behind that resistance? What's going on for me? And I'm using that as a way to propel and accelerate my own growth. And I've noticed that it's been such a cool opportunity. And so I want to talk today all about resistance. The other day, I was in a conference. It was a church thing. And someone said, in order to have growth, we must have resistance. And she mentioned how it's like breaking down a muscle. Like, you go to the gym, and when you're building muscles, the only way to build it up is to first break it down. I don't know a lot about muscles. I am not like a nutritionist or sports person by any means, but I thought that metaphor was so great. In order to actually build the strong muscles that we need in our physical bodies, we have to break down the muscles that we have and then regrow them. I feel that is true about resistance here. Resistance in any other area of our life is also the same. It's very much a breaking down before we build up. And those things that we are most resistant to digging into are often the things that the most growth is on the other side. The most beautiful life is on the other side. And so are we going to continue to resist it, or are we going to allow that resistance to be there and use it for a space to learn? Before I share some stories with you, I'm going to share a few questions. These are journaling prompt questions that are really powerful for me. I find that thought work journaling, intuitive journaling, writing out my thoughts about things in a way that I'm not necessarily keeping them to look back at them again, but usually just throwing them out again later. That kind of journaling for my emotional wellness, has been one of the most therapeutic and most growth building exercises I've ever done. And the more that I do it, the better my questions get. And it's the growth also comes with this really good depth of questioning and answering, being radically honest with myself. Is there resistance in any area of my life? If my initial response is no, I would ask myself, where is there resistance? Show me where the resistance is, because we're going to have it somewhere. So I'm going to give you some journaling prompt questions, and these are really good. If you have a pen and a paper, I would jot these down, and immediately I would go to work on these, like tomorrow morning or now. If you have a notebook, write down answers to questions. And I love to stream of consciousness write. So I'm not going to judge myself or pause or question or be like, why am I writing this? This is weird. I'm just going to allow my inner self to write. So where am I resistant? What is there? What is underneath that? What is under that resistance? Where am I not being radically honest with myself? What is the resistance keeping me safe from, or how is it keeping me safe? Because so often it is. If there was no resistance, what would I be doing? What would change if I dropped the resistance? What would change about my life? What do I need to learn here? Or what learning would come if I stopped fighting this resistance? My own visualization on resistance is me pushing up against me. Like I'm putting my two fists together and I'm pushing up against something. And I'm like, nope, not going to open that door. Nope, not going to look there. And the more I push against myself, the more the resistance builds. And it's actually the resistance that's the most uncomfortable. It's not the discomfort that's going to come from doing the thing that I don't really want to do or digging into the thing that I don't want to do. My brain thinks that. So it's kind of keeping me safe by telling me it's going to be really uncomfortable, but it's actually the resistance that is the most uncomfortable. This is especially true for emotions. If there is any amount of resistance you have to feeling big feelings or heavy emotions, resistance actually makes it feel worse. Resistance is the hard thing. It's not even the heavy emotion, it's the resistance to those heavy emotions. If you want to do more emotion work, listen to episode 1 of this new season. Go listen to last week if you haven't listened to it, or re-listen to it and take some notes, and that will help you with resisting those big emotions. So it's me pushing up against me. It's the pressure that is so hard. It's the resistance that is so hard. So if I can open it, if I can welcome myself up to it, that's actually where the learning and growth comes from. And that's actually the least hard thing to do. It feels like it's going to be difficult. Our brain really tells us, like, don't go there. Like, that's going to be really hard. But as soon as we do, we almost immediately feel a little bit of relief or release there. So I'm going to share how this has kind of happened in my life. If you haven't been here from the beginning, which maybe some of you have, I know several of you have messaged me to be like, I've listened to every single podcast. And that's incredible to me because there's like, I don't even know, a lot. I think there's close to 170 episodes. By the end of this year, we'll probably get to like 200 episodes, which is just wild to me. So for those of you that have been here for the beginning, you know that I got into this whole spiel, got into this whole world that I'm in, I guess, through my own kids and through struggles that I was having with my own children. And at the time, I remember being very resistant to get support in my parenting. Does this sound familiar at all? Maybe this does not sound familiar to you and you're like, yeah, I'm all about getting support. But for me, I didn't want to tell people I was struggling as much as I was struggling. I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to go talk to my doctor. I didn't want to go get a therapist. I just didn't. Over time, as things got worse and worse and worse, and I was like, I really need help here. Like, I know now that I do need help, but I was still so resistant to feeling like there was something within me that needed help and support. I really felt like it was my kids. So I really wanted to work with somebody who had gone through the Neufeld Institute because I loved attachment and developmental based stuff. And I knew that that's the perspective that I wanted from someone. And so as I reached out to this lady, we were living over in Montreal at that time. I reached out to this lady for some help and support. And she said, I only work with parents. I don't work with kids. I was so resistant to that. I literally fought her on that tooth and nail. I kept sending her emails. I sent her this essay long email about like all of the reasons why my child was different and why she actually needed to help my child and not me, and why it was not the problem, and all of the books that I'd read, and that I knew I was doing all the things, and like it was really just my child that needed to change, and could she just come fix my child? And she just sent back these nice emails being like, I know, I'm probably validating my feelings and stuff, but also being like, I really do just work with the parents. So I'm so resistant to even hiring her. I'm so resistant to even having her come over at all, because for one, I'm thinking, I don't want her just to tell me this is a me problem. I know it's my kids. And I know if as soon as my kids would change, I'd be able to change things for myself. And I really could not see that I needed support, that I needed outside support, and that it was me that needed to change. Those were huge areas of resistance for me, so much that I don't even know if I'd asked myself, where is there resistance in my life, that I would notice that that was even resistance. But it was so much resistance there. And I remember the first day she came over, it had been building for so many months, probably so many years, that as soon as she came over, I was just so done. I gave her a huge hug, never met this lady before in my life. And I just cried. I just cried and cried and cried. And I'm like, this is awkward. I'm not even really a crier. At this time, I am just super a crier now. But back then, not really a crier, especially in public. And I just felt so done. I just felt so like, I have no idea where to go here. But I remember even in that conversation, really fighting with her back on it. Like she would kind of bring up some ideas or say, say some things. And I'd just be like, no, like it's him, like he needs to change. And what she showed me was like, what if he didn't change? And as soon as she said that, I was just like instantly mad at her. I was like, no, 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 no. Like he's going to change. Like he's going to grow. Things are going to develop. Like he's going to learn. And she said, but what if he's, neurodivergent or whatever? At this time we didn't have, and none of my kids were diagnosed with anything. And she was like, what if it's going to take them a little bit longer? What if they don't ever change? Like, what if they're 17 and they're like this still? Like, then what? And I was like, no, like, I just can't handle that. Cannot be my answer. I was so blinded by resistance that I couldn't see any way out of it. I was just so pushed up against that. Something in the course of that conversation, which is amazing. It's amazing what coaching can do. But sometime in the course of that conversation, she must have said or asked something in a way that helped me to see that my influence in that relationship was greater than I thought that it was. That my response to this child made a bigger difference than I thought that it did. And that maybe I could shift the way that I was responding to this child, even without my child changing anything. And it was just like a tiny little glimpse of hope. Like there wasn't really anything big. It was just like this tiny little idea that was sparked within me. And honestly, I never had her come back again. She left me with a book. She left me with some questions. I started doing some journaling, and I really just dug in on my own. And at the time, my husband was a student. We didn't have a lot of income. So I wasn't like, I'm just going to keep, going to this lady over and over again. But I decided to just start implementing this work on my own. And all I did was the next time that my child had a meltdown, I just paused. I noticed the intensity of the feeling that I was feeling inside. And I just decided to turn around and walk away and go into my room and shut the door and do my own thing. I just didn't interact. I didn't really do anything positive necessarily, but I just paused the negativity that usually spewed out of my mouth as my child was having this big meltdown. At that time, I was very unaware of my own emotional dysregulation. I was unaware of my own influence and really power within our relationship. I was giving it all away. I was saying it was all him, that if he changed, then I could change, and there was no way I could change unless he changed. There was so much resistance there that I did not see at all. And looking back on this was in 2017 when this conversation happened and I hired this lady. Looking back on this now, so many years later, how many years has it been? 7 years later. And everything in my parenting is completely different. When things pop up, when big emotions pop up, my first response is to notice what's coming up for me. What is this bringing up for me? What is under this? It is not resistance. It is not this child is a problem. It is not this child needs to fix things. I'm just going to say that this doesn't happen all the time. About 80% of the time, I'm able to be there. 20% of the time, I'm still like, no. You just need to change, teenager. Come on. But 80% of the time, I'm able to do this pretty well. The other 20%, I kind of calm down, and takes me some time and maybe several days, maybe several weeks. Then I circle back and realize like, no, where am I giving my power away here? And I do shift and change things, but I'm not able to do it all of the time. I don't think any of us are, because we're human. And that's just part of humaning. But there was just so much resistance to getting support, so much resistance to turning inwards and seeing that there was any part of it that might be mine. Instead of asking myself, what is mine here? Where is my power here? What influence do I have? What can I change? Where am I in this relationship? And what can I do to shift things? It was all just so resistant. So fast forward, and we're here now, and we have a lovely relationship, and we communicate well. And There are still times of tension and still times of difficulty and discomfort for sure. But it is so much better than it's ever been. Every year, I feel like it gets better, but it only is through pushing up against resistance. It's only is through understanding what is behind resistance. Because even as we were traveling, there was things that I was really resistant to. I didn't want to let go of the control of my schedule. I had this idea in mind of all the different things I wanted to go see, and I would just get so upset if we didn't do all the things that I wanted to do, slash do none of the things that I wanted to do, because so many of the places we went to that happened. And I realized that as soon as I released that and I just kind of dug into like, why am I so resistant here? And in my mind, what was really happening was I was like, what if we never do this again? What if we don't get this experience again? Like I have to make the most out of it. I was almost like trying to control too much. And in that process, taking out the joy from me and from travel and from our family and from our relationships. And so now every time that I notice this resistance bubble up, especially resistance to turn inwards, that is exactly what I know that I need to do. Every single time that I am resistant to turn inwards in some way, I know that that's the answer. I know that on the other side is what I'm actually looking for. On the other side is that breaking down of the muscles, which feels really uncomfortable, but then the outcome is so much stronger and bigger and better muscles. Now, the same resistance again popped up in my business. I just felt like, again, I was into that control phase of when I first started my business of just like, I just need to learn more. I just need to listen to other people more. I need to read the next book and the next podcast, listen to the next podcast and take the next training course. And that will give me the answers that I seek. And I will be able to like find the way and it will start to work and all of these things. But there was so much resistance from me to do it any other way than that. I was so in the control energy that I couldn't see another way. And so I met this intuitive business coach and it kind of blew my mind. I had like one conversation with her and was like, wait, what? What is intuition? And like, what do you mean you just do what you feel? And like, what is this crazy business that you're running? Like, it was so bizarre to me. But I just felt this strong pull and I couldn't figure out what that pull was, but I knew that I needed it. And so I hired her, even though it was really high for what I typically usually hired coaches for. And I didn't have a ton at the time, but I just really felt like there was something there for me. And even in our first coaching call, I remember feeling so resistant because my intuition was really pulling me towards rest more, play more, spend more time with your kids. Don't worry about your business. Like, just let it be. It will grow as it grows and you are just fine. And I didn't want that to be the answer. I was like, no, growth now in the timeline that I want, right? Control. Just like, do you notice the theme here? It's like control my kids, control my business, control my travels. So I was super resistant to it, but my intuition was so strong. It knew exactly that. And she was so good at comforting and supporting me in the way that helped me to follow my intuition and to really allow myself to rest and to play and to just lean into my intuition, which was working so much less than what I had been doing and worrying so much less. And also not even like the actual hours I was working, but the intensity and the pressure and the worry and the fear that I was working through, like all of that was just gone. And I was so much more at peace and completely flipping intuition in my business and running it in an intuitive way has made it so that I feel happier. I feel more fulfilled. I feel more successful. I feel less stressed about what is happening in my business. And again, this is not all the time. I'm not even at 80-20 here yet. Like, let's be real, but I'm getting there. I'm getting to the 80-20. And I'm able to just feel so much more calm, so much more rested, so much more relaxed. And I enjoy business more and I do work less and I have more fun with it. And for me now, my idea of success has completely changed. My idea of success now is that wealth is more than money. And wealth is also money. Yeah, and that's great. But wealth is relationships. Wealth is feeling abundant energy. Wealth is an abundance of time. It's an abundance of love and connection and fun experience and presence and spending time in nature. That is success. And I have a very successful business and a very successful life because of all of that. So on the other side of that resistance to really look at my business and to really change things again, because it was that control fear side of it. Like, no, I have to make this work instead of trust and release. When I was able to release that pressure and release that resistance, there was a really beautiful way of being and living and doing life and doing business that I love so much. One of the ways that I noticed that we really can see resistance pop up is in rest. Because I think, especially as women, but I think men do this as well, is that self-worth is tied to productivity, right? So my being, my enoughness, my innate value in the world comes from what I do. what other people see me do, the check boxes that I get done, the prizes that I win, the competitions that I win. All of those things make me feel good about myself as a person. And if I rest, that's opposite of that. What if I rest and I don't do anything? If I don't do anything, then I'm not getting my worth that I need. I need external validation. I need to create this worth for myself so I can feel good inside. But that's really a lie anyways, because we never get to the point where we actually feel that restfulness and that okayness with ourselves unless we give it to ourselves intentionally, which we can do at any phase of the game, even when we're doing nothing in life. Um, because rest is like the best kind of rebellion. Rest is, I get to do nothing if I want. I don't have to do anything. I don't have to claw after my worth. I don't have to push after my worth. It is just there, and I can rest in that. And now with rest and with intuition and with changing my view on success, I enjoy life more. I feel more rested. I feel more fueled. I feel happier. So I want to ask you, in what areas are you feeling still resistant? Are you resistant to rest? Are you resistant somewhere in your business? Is there something that you feel intuitively like is the next step for you, but you're really resistant to make that move? Are you resistant to hiring a coach or a therapist or doing some new program that you really feel called to, but you're feeling super resistant? Are you resistant to being vulnerable? That's a really good one. Like I talk to so many people where I'm like, yeah, the retreat, like we go to this awesome retreat and for 3 days, we like open up and share stories and we connect and we coach and we just heal. And they're like, no, I don't talk, like, I don't talk openly about my stuff. Like that is not me. But that vulnerability piece, and you don't have to share about everything in your life, but that vulnerability piece is so key to the healing process. As we share our stories, our shame decreases naturally. As we go in community with other women, with other people, our shame decreases naturally and we are able to heal. So I want you to take a minute and just look inward and think, where am I resistant? Where is there resistance popping up in my life? I'll share a little example again of not digging into resistance. I've had a few clients like this. I've had a few conversations like this, even with people that were not clients with me, where they were very uncoachable. And being uncoachable means there was so much resistance to anything that I said, any questions that I asked. There was just all of this pressure. And the resistance definitely came from something outside of me needs to change first, or I can't feel better. And it doesn't matter what avenue this was in. I've talked to people, lots of business owners who felt this way. I can't feel better about my business, whether it's a brick and mortar business or an online business, but something needs to change. I need to make more money. I need to create more clients. I need to get more income in my business this way. I need to decrease my debt. Like, unless those things change, I can't possibly feel better. And there was no amount of me questioning or pausing or listening or supporting that helped them see outside of that, because the resistance was entirely encompassing them. It was like a concrete box that they were inside of, and they couldn't see outside of the box. They couldn't even see that there was a box because it was so strong there. This pops up a lot in relationship conversations as well, in just not wanting to turn inward and see, is there any part of me that can do this? And if I already feel like I've done a lot of work, like where else is there resistance pushing up? Like there will be something there. There will be some learning if we allow ourselves to turn inward and to be radically honest with ourselves about our resistance, and allow ourselves to open up to ourselves. We don't have to open up to others if we don't want to. We don't have to be vulnerable with others yet, but can we be vulnerable and open to ourselves? Can we ask ourselves really hard questions, really deep questions? Can we answer those either out loud or in a journal? Can we see where growth is for our next step? What is our next path or avenue to growth? I also want to offer that if you are feeling like coaching is the next step for growth for you, because you're feeling that little niggling inside of like, yeah, this is something I'm resistant to, but this is also somewhere where I need to grow. I will be running Parent School again. You can hop on that wait list at the link in my bio on Instagram, or you can go to coachcrystal.ca/group. And also my retreat is such a great opportunity for this. It's a huge catalyst for growth. I think it's months of coaching in 3 days. There's just so much that we get done there. And there is lots of time for rest and for pondering and for journaling and for processing. It's not just like work all day. And the work that is there is fueling. It feels fun to me to do the work like that with myself now, to dig into where the resistance is, because I know the growth that's on the other side of it. It is like the most warm, welcoming, fun way of healing that I can imagine. And doing it with women that are on the same path, on the same journey, feels beautiful as well. So make sure you get on there, because I'm going to be closing the registration ASAP. So that is www.coachcrystal.ca/the-retreat. Again, you can find the links on Spotify or Apple or wherever you're listening. And if you love this episode, you can go and rate it and review it and all the things, and share on social media as well. And I would love to hear from you after you've done some of these journaling prompts. Where did resistance bubble up for you? What did it feel like? What did that look like? What area were you resistant to? And what growth came on the other side of it? Because I guarantee you there will be growth on the other side of resistance. Thanks for being here, friends. See you next week. If you enjoyed this episode as much as I did, I would love for you to help spread the word by getting this message of support and guidance out to as many people as possible. So text it to your best friend or tag me on Instagram and share it. Leave a review, rate it, subscribe it, or follow on your favorite platform. Send me a DM on IG letting me know which parts have impacted you or what you'd like to see on future episodes. We'll see you next week.